Did you ever arrive somewhere expecting a new beginning, only to find a grave instead? Clara Mayfield stepped off the train at Dry Creek Station, her heart stitched with hope for a promised life, a husband, a home, fresh eggs each morning. But the dust-choked platform held no kind man with rough hands, only a barefoot boy with eyes too old for his 10 years, delivering a blow that stopped her breath. Paws dead. In that moment, Clara's dreams unraveled. But what she chose next would rewrite the lives of 7 children and a town that had forgotten how to care. This is a story of broken promises, fierce resilience, and the kind of love that builds a home from ashes. The train's whistle shrieked as it pulled away from Dry Creek, a speck of a town in the Nebraska plains where the horizon stretched so wide it seemed to mock ambition. Clara clutched her 2 trunks, their leather edges frayed from a journey that had already cost her everything: savings, pride, the last threads of her old life in Boston. She was 28, with auburn hair, pinned tightly in a dress mended so often it whispered of surrender. The letter from Richard Walker had been her lifeline, a widower promising a hillside house, a warm bed, and chickens. 7, he'd written, for fresh eggs. She'd read it so many times the paper had softened to cloth. But now, under a sky heavy with dust, she faced Sam, the boy who'd just shattered her future. "You Clara Mayfield?" he asked again, squinting like she might be a mirage. His voice was steady, but his bare feet shifted in the dirt, toes curling against the chill of early June. Clara nodded, her throat too dry to speak. "Pa's dead. Snake bite. 2 days ago. Buried him ourselves." The words hit like stones, each one sinking deeper. She blinked, her mind scrambling to catch up. "There must be a mistake," she said faintly. "I was to marry him. He sent for me." Sam's eyes didn't waver. "He wrote it after he was bit. Said maybe you'd come anyway." Her chest tightened, the air sharp with grief and something else. Betrayal, perhaps, or the cruel weight of a promise unkept. "How many of you are there?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. 7, Sam said. "I'm the oldest. 7 children, no father, no mother." Clara's knees wavered, but she locked them firm. The train groaned behind her, its wheels grinding as it vanished, taking her last chance to flee with it. She looked at Sam, his face hollow but resolute, and at her trunks, too heavy for her alone. "Where's the house?" she asked. He pointed beyond a low ridge where the land sloped into shadow. "It's small." Clara met his gaze. "So am I." Sam didn't smile, but he hoisted one of her trunks with a strength that belied his frame, and she followed, her boots crunching on gravel, her heart whispering that she hadn't come for love, but maybe for something bigger. The house was a lean-to dream, sagging under its own weight. One room, a slanted porch, a door that creaked like a warning. Inside it smelled of ash and boiled beans, the air thick with the ghosts of meals past. 6 pairs of eyes stared from a table set with mismatched bowls, waiting for a supper that wasn't coming. The 7th child, a baby, slept in a crate by a dying fire, wrapped in a quilt patched with desperation. Clara's breath caught as she stepped inside, her eyes adjusting to the dim. Sam dropped her trunk with a thud and pulled out the only unbroken chair. "That was Pa's," he said, his voice flat. Clara paused. "Then it stays empty." He nodded once, like they'd sealed a pact. A girl with braids and dirt-smudged cheeks stood, clutching a wooden spoon like a sword. I'm Ruth, she said. I stir things. Mama used to, before she bled out after Jonah. Her words were too calm, too final for a child. Clara's gaze fell to the pot on the hearth. Thin broth, 2 beans, a single potato sliced into 7. You cook this? She asked. Ruth nodded. When we can. Clara rolled up her sleeves. Let's start again. She poured water from her canteen, crushed herbs from her bag, and added a precious piece of salted pork she'd hidden from the train conductor. It wasn't much, but the aroma shifted the room from despair to attention. Even the baby stirred. Clara ladled the stew into bowls, her hands steady despite the ache in her stomach. Eat slow, she said. Let your stomach remember it. The children obeyed, silent, their eyes flickering with something new. Trust, perhaps, or just the shock of a full bowl. Clara didn't eat. She leaned against the doorframe, watching the children's faces soften with each bite. Ruth blinked, rapidly, as if holding back tears she wasn't sure were allowed. Clara's own hunger gnawed, but she let it. This meal wasn't for her, it was for claiming their hunger as her own. After supper, they washed up in a tin bucket outside, the children moving like they'd done this 100 times. Sam lingered, sitting in the empty chair, his eyes on the fire. Clara stepped onto the porch, the stars above cold and unyielding. In that moment, she realized she hadn't just inherited 7 orphans. She'd stepped into a house of unfinished hearts, and supper was the first stitch in mending them. Under a loose floorboard, she found a ledger tucked in a sack of spoiled oats. It was thin, bound with a strip of fabric that might have once been a wedding dress. Inside were sparse entries: births, deaths, failed harvests, a sketch of a chicken coop never built. On the final page, in uneven script, was her name. Clara Mayfield arrives June 3rd. She's to be treated kindly. She has nothing, but we'll give her everything we've got. Her hands trembled. Richard had known he was dying, yet he'd written her into their story, trusting her to finish it. She looked at the muddy boots by the door, the baby's faint cry, the mismatched shoes. This wasn't the life she'd wanted, but it was the one she'd been handed. That night, Sam sat on the porch, his feet dangling, staring at the sky. That ledger was Pa's, Clara said, sitting beside him. I read what he wrote about me. Sam didn't look at her. He knew he wasn't going to make it. Told me to dig the grave deep and wait at the station just in case you came. Clara's throat tightened. Why didn't you tell me he'd written it? Sam shrugged. Didn't want to scare you off or trap you. She leaned closer, the wood creaking under them. I'm not scared, Sam, and I'm not trapped. But I need to know. What happened to your ma? His sigh was too heavy for a boy. She bled out after Jonah, like Ruth said. No one could stop. Preacher said it was God's will. I think it was the dust and no help. Clara nodded. I'm not your mother, she said softly, but I'm not leaving either. Sam turned, his eyes raw. Even if we don't behave? She smiled, faintly. Especially then. The first sign of trouble came with smoke, not from their chimney, but from the east ridge where no homes stood. Clara spotted it at dawn, a gray ribbon curling against the pink sky. She didn't tell the children, not yet. They were laughing, chasing each other through the frost-bitten grass. But Sam saw it too, his eyes narrowing as he hauled firewood. That's not chimney smoke, he said. It's too dark. Clara's stomach twisted. How often do riders pass this way? She asked. Hardly ever, Sam replied. Someone's watching. That night, she let the stew simmer longer, told Ruth to keep the baby close, and barred the door. The air in the cabin thickened, the children sensing the shift. Clara didn't sleep. She sat on the porch, wrapped in a shawl, watching for movement. A flicker past the pines, a tall man mounted, watching. He didn't approach, just vanished into the smoke. By morning, the smoke was gone, but 2 hens were missing, and the woodpile was trampled. No harm done, but it was a warning. Clara found a broken latch on the barn door and tucked it into her apron. She gathered the children, telling them stories while they peeled potatoes, but her mind was on the rider. Someone was circling, testing, and she knew why. A woman alone with 7 children was a target in a land where men didn't like homes built without their say. 2 days later, a man arrived on a chestnut horse, his duster stained, hat low. The children froze. Ruth clutched, "The baby." Sam reached for the rifle, but Clara raised a hand. "I'm looking for Richard Walker," the man said, his voice rough but measured. "He's dead," Clara replied. "Snakebite, 2 weeks ago." The man removed his hat, revealing eyes heavy with regret. "That's what I feared. I'm Warren Walker, his brother." Sam stepped forward, wary. "Pa never mentioned a brother." Warren nodded. "We didn't part kindly." He unstrapped a satchel, revealing a ledger identical to the one under the floorboards. "He wrote me letters. I didn't answer until the last one with your name in it." Clara's heart stalled. "He told you about me?" Warren pulled a page from the ledger, written in Richard's hand. "If I die before she arrives, let her keep the house, let her raise them if she chooses." Clara's voice didn't waver. "I'm staying." Warren handed her a key. "To the safe under the floorboards. It's not much, just the last eggs he saved." She tucked the key into her apron, its weight heavier than gold. That night, Clara opened the safe. Inside was a deed, unsigned, and a letter addressed to the woman who says yes even after she knows. Richard's words were a confession. "I sent for you because I knew I was leaving. If you stay, everything I have is yours. The land, the name, and if they let you, the children, not because I chose you, but because I trusted you would choose them." Beneath the letter was a pouch with 7 buttons, bone, wood, metal, from the children's baby clothes, a mother's keepsake. Clara's eyes burned, but she didn't cry. She tucked the buttons back, her fingers gentle as prayer. Winter came early, the wind howling with unfinished business. Then Jonah, the youngest boy, started coughing, a dry, sharp sound that cut through the cabin. By noon, Ruth was pale, and within 2 days, 4 children burned with fever. Clara didn't sleep. Her hands blistered from stoking the fire, her voice hoarse from lullabies. The worst was when the baby stopped crying, his silence colder than the wind. Clara held him, rocking, her heart pounding with every shallow breath. Warren returned with firewood and stayed, building a steam tent, forcing broth down tiny throats. On the 4th night, Clara knelt by the fire, begging the darkness, "Don't take them, take anything else." The fire surged, and Ruth opened her eyes. Jonah asked for bread. The baby whimpered. Sam, too weak to smile, whispered, "You stayed." Clara nodded, tears falling. "There was never a day I wouldn't." News of the fever spread, and so did whispers. 2 men arrived uninvited with a judge's stamp and smug grins. "No wedding means no rights," the taller one said. These children are unclaimed. The land's in debt. Clara stood firm. I have a letter, a deed, witnesses. They sneered. That won't hold out here. Sam stepped forward, rifle in hand, Ruth beside him. She's our family now, Sam said. Warren appeared, shotgun resting casually. The men left, muttering about sheriffs, but they didn't return. Clara turned to Sam. You stood for me. He nodded. You stood for us first. By December, the house was more than a shelter. It was a beacon. A girl named Liza arrived, barefoot, holding a sick baby. Clara pulled her inside, wrapped her in a quilt, and whispered, You're not late. You're right on time. Liza stayed, and the cabin grew warmer, not just from the fire, but from the people it held. Neighbors brought flour, a widow offered apples, the preacher sent books. The town, once cold, began to thaw. Spring arrived, slow and muddy. Sam planted tomatoes where the chicken coop was meant to be. Ruth taught Liza to mend boots. The children called Clara Mama without hesitation, not as a title, but as a truth. She never remarried, never left the ridge. The ledger sat on the mantel, its final page in her hand. Clara Mayfield Walker, head of household by heart. She wrote one last letter, tucked inside. If you find this house, know we chose to stay, to love, to build. If you're lost, come in. There's soup on the fire and a bed in the corner. We've been waiting for you. Years later, the house grew. More rooms, a porch swing, a coop with real chickens. But its heart never changed. Clara, once a stranger, became the mother of a family built not by blood or law, but by choice. In a world that breaks promises, she kept one, to love those who needed her most. And in that choice, she built a home that stood stronger than stone.